Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we're going to be talking Miami vibes, not Miami Vice, Miami vibes. And Mr. JGillz is on the show with me, so we're going to talk a little Miami. He's got his Miami hat on. He's feeling really, he's feeling like he's in the South.
Hey man, I ain't ashamed to rock it. We loyal sports fans over here, so gotta rep my boys.
We're gonna get into the Miami Dolphins as they face the AFC South 3 more times to finish the season, or 2 more times to finish the season. But before we do that, we do have to do the Get Off Your Chest segment. We do that with every episode, whether it be talking about a few teams within the AFC South or something that is completely away from the AFC South or football in general. But in this episode, we will be talking about football, though. We're going to be talking about a trade. That means Devante Adams ended up with the New York Jets, traded him for a 3rd-round draft pick, and it could become a second if he does 2 things, if they do 2 things. If the Jets make the AFC Championship game in the Super Bowl, or if Devante Adams is a 1st or 2nd team All-Pro, which, be honest, do I think either one of those things happen? Probably not. So basically, a 3rd-round draft pick is what the Raiders gave up for him when they probably could have got a 2nd. But I was listening to someone talk about if they would have did more of this contract, potentially they could have got a 2nd as opposed to a 3rd. But it is what it is. They don't have his contract anymore. And now he's a member of the Dramedy, which is the New York Football Jets. Now, I call them a Dramedy because it is kind of a drama a little bit at times because you got, Robert Salah got fired. You got the new interim head coach on the sideline, Jeff Ulrich, former San Francisco 49er linebacker. And he actually is over there and trying to call timeouts and figure out everything else at the same time. And, over there got the Santa Claus beard going on, all those different things. He's just got a lot going on. And he's got Aaron Rodgers. And then he's got tied down and calling the plays, which I'm pretty sure Titans fans remember him from calling one of the best games of the season last year and then getting he ended up getting in trouble with a DUI, which people were kind of trying to clown him a little bit, but I'm not going to clown anybody when it comes to that because, hey, people make mistakes and people are human. But just was kind of giving you a timeline there. But, yeah, it's just a lot going on with the New York Jets. The defense is solid, and they aren't out of the race. But it is a little bit of a dramedy when it comes to the New York Football Jets, and especially with the offense with no motion at all, or barely any motion at all, which I don't understand why. But, I believe that's what Aaron Rodgers wants, and what Aaron Rodgers wants, apparently he gets when it comes to the New York Jets. So we're going to see how this dramedy plays out. I'm not suspecting it's going to play out great, but we shall indeed see what happens. You got any comments on this one?
Oh, man, absolutely. Mike. Get it off my chest. I just want to say, man, I was watching that Monday night game. For those who don't know, we talking Dolphins tonight. However, your boy JGillz is a sports director for our local station in Rochester, New York, Upstate New York, the Beat 105.5. So I actually covered the Buffalo Bills. But right now, I'm talking my Dolphins. I said no Bills this week, no Bills this week. We're going to talk that Dolphins. So just understand that when you talk about the Jets, you talk about the Bills, the Dolphins, you do AFC South. But I got a lot of insight on the AFC East. And what I want to do to get off my chest, I don't know if y'all watched that Monday night game. Oh, my God. It was a good game, but the officiating was terrible. I need to just let that off my chest. I was so mad to see those officials. And the lead official happened to be a black man. And I love when black men get they just do. But, my God, he don't need to be officiating as a head official in no other games, Mike. Because when I saw those pass interference calls, when I saw those roughing the passer calls, when I saw that game go for 200-plus penalty yards, that's when I knew. I said, oh, no. This officiating is terrible. And that's coming from a Dolphins fan. Going against watching the Bills and the Jets, to me, it was just too much. Had to get that off my chest, just the starters. But in regards to the trade, I thought that was a really good trade. When I look at Devante Adams and I look at the Jets offense, they've still got a big man from Dallas over there holding it down at left tackle. He's still playing this season. He had a couple calls on him, but he looked pretty good. Tyron Smith. Breece Hall, obviously. Aaron's got his guys. You got a guy like Alan Lazard, who's always open. To me, he's in primetime games. He's a good receiver. He trusts Aaron. Aaron trusts him. Then you add Devante, his go-to guy, and then you add the former offensive rookie of the year, Garrett Wilson, and then you add Breece Hall. To me, it's like that offense should be an elite offense. It should be an unstoppable offense. And I think that with the addition of Devante, I think that offense will start to gain a little bit of momentum. I'm not sure if that's going to resonate into wins. But as far as these good close games, like we saw the Jets just lose to the Bills, we might see a little bit more of that. But in regards to these wins, I'm going to have to see it to believe it. Aaron Rodgers has not looked good back-to-back weeks, throwing interceptions to clinch the game. I mean, come on. That's not the Aaron Rodgers we know. We talking about the Aaron Rodgers from the first half when he was dropping them Hail Marys looking like old Aaron. But we are where we are right now. And another quick trade, too. You know, the Bills was making motion as well, making moves. Amari Cooper to the Bills Mafia. You know, if you're comparing the two moves, I still like Devante with Aaron. That chemistry is much better. I felt like Amari, he's going to be the best receiver out in Buffalo, but I'm not sure if his skill set is going to resonate to exactly what they needed. They still don't have an elite speedster on the outside, somebody who or a dynamic playmaker. You know, you got a guy who's going to get open. He's going to catch the ball. He can run good routes. I like Amari Cooper. He's probably the best receiver that the Bills have. But as far as an elite speedster or an elite playmaker, still somebody 6'5" or somebody who can just get up. We thought Claypool would be that guy. If he wasn't that guy, I think the Bills are still missing that. But, you know, only time will tell. Only time will tell.
I'll tell you what, Claypool, I never was very high on him, even when he was in Pittsburgh. We started off his career. You know, he started off great, but I just wasn't very high on him. When you talk about the officiating, going back to that one, and I played football from when I was 5 all the way to I was like senior in college.
Wow.
So I understand the officiating and, you know, bad officiating. That's to me, the way I look at it is there's no perfect person to call a game. Even, you know, the only person that can call a game be perfect be God. That's what I kind of look at it. Amen. So, you know, with that being said, you know, half the time I look at it, I'm like, look, if a team's going to win, if they're a good team, they're going to figure out how to win. You know, there's a lot of, you know, calls, should they have it or should they have, they're subjective. So I just like, you know, I guess I've reached the age now where it really doesn't get me any worked up at all. I'm just like, hey, it's gonna happen. You know,
yeah. That was egregious. I'm like, oh my God. But I feel, you know.
Well, it's subjective, you know. So that's where I kind of look at it. It's subjective, and you know, the thing I also try to remind people is if they had computerized referees, it would be a penalty on every play, and that game would last about 6 hours out there.
You ain't lying. That's a solid point. Oh my God.
It would be a horrible game. It would be, man, people be complaining like the first quarter would take like 2 hours because there'd be a hold on every play. But yeah, you know, I guess I got to get off of that one, of course, to get off the chess segment. We got to move on over to talk about these Miami Dolphins. Now the vibes was high going into the season. You know, you got Jalen Ramsey with the new deal. You got Tua getting the new deal. You got a new center in there, which I can talk to you about. But you're doing the same reaction that Titans fans were doing last year with him. But you got a young linebacker you brought over from Seattle, so he's not bad.
Yeah,
but you've had a lot of different changes happen, but yet still momentum and hope was high. But started the season 2-3, and part of that is you know, because of Tua, but you know, and Tua injuries and things like that. You wish him well on his recovery, and we're gonna talk about him in a second. But as far as the record 2-3, is this a record that you saw them having through 5 games, or were you kind of like, you know, thought it may be a little better?
Absolutely not. We talk about the 2-3 record, and to me, it's not even just about the record. To me, it's more so about the stats, Mike. When I look at last season, the Dolphins finished with the second best points per game percentage at 29.2 points, right under the Dallas Cowboys at number 1. And it seems like Dallas and Miami both dropped because now the Dolphins are dead last. 12 points per game is what their average is. And to me, that's the biggest drop. If you can win the game, win the game. If you lose the game, look, to me, I thought this offense will be much more explosive. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa going down in week 2 against those Buffalo Bills. That's his kryptonite. Seems like every time.
I thought he went. Was it the Titans? I thought he went down against the. No. You're right. You're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
He went down against the Bills, and it was bad, man. It was bad. Even before that, I can't even blame the loss on Tua going down because before that he shot 3 interceptions in the game. So the Bills are his kryptonite. Coach Sean McDermott, he just knows how to beat Tua. Just like Tua knew he had the recipe to beat Belichick. He had a great winning record against New England, and that continued. Well, actually not because he didn't play, but the Dolphins typically beat the Patriots. The Bills have been abusing the Dolphins season after season after season, game after game after game. And so when I saw that I wasn't expecting that at all. I thought that the Dolphins were going to be a lot better team. And honestly, Mike, when I looked at it, you already mentioned some of the key pieces. Tyreek Hill got an extension, fully guaranteed. Jalen Ramsey ended up getting his deal. Jalen Waddle ended up getting his deal. Tua Tagovailoa obviously got his deal. They even extended the coach, Mike McDaniel. So Stephen Ross backed up the Brinks trucks, was giving out everybody money. And I'm thinking like, oh, man, everybody locked in, ready to go. And honestly, the perception from a fan's perspective, it looks like everybody got money. They're in South Beach. They're in Florida. It's so much stuff to do. They started losing and nobody cares. And that's why, to me, they need to light a fire. Something needs to change for the Miami Dolphins. And I'm hoping Tua coming back is going to be that spark because Tua is the only guy who can run that offense how it needs to be ran. He has all of the intangibles to run Mike McDaniel's offense. He has the timing, the quick release, the accuracy, the leadership. He's a leader on that team. He puts everybody in check. He holds everybody accountable from Tyreek Hill to Teron Armstead, everybody. So when I saw us being at 2-3, honestly, it's not exactly where I wanted to be, but I don't think it's the worst place we could have been either. I think that it's still we can bounce back. Obviously, we got a huge game against the Indianapolis Colts this Sunday. So I think that that's a chance to bounce back as well. Both starting quarterbacks probably won't play. I know Richardson's still in the air, but I'm not sure if he's going to play yet. I'm not sure Jonathan Taylor's health, so we'll see how that goes. But I think that where I'm not liking where we are. I'm not loving it, but I'm not overly mad either.
Well, you kind of answered my question I was going to have for you. You said it seems like something is off with this team, and that you were right on it. That I was like, it just seems like something's just off with this team. And like you mentioned, Tua, Mike McDaniel talked about he expects him to come back at some point this season. I mean, when he went down, I mean, everyone was holding their breath. And then he kind of, he didn't hold his hands quite like in the Cincinnati game, but his hands were kind of in that same formation. Oh, yeah. And it just, what are your thoughts on Tua at this time? I'm not going to, tell him whether he should retire or not, because that's personally his choice. And, I shouldn't tell anybody what they should be doing in their career, but just what were your thoughts for going through your head when he kind of, he went down and then, just the quarterback play since he's been gone?
Man, well, first, when I saw the initial hit against Damar Hamlin, I didn't think too much of it. It looked like Tua over the last couple of seasons, how I saw him and how I saw him get hurt over those last couple of seasons. Last season he played every game, led the league in QBR, did great. He took the Taekwondo, did what he had to do. I don't know if it was that level of comfort that I mentioned earlier when everybody getting paid or what, but he diverted back to those bad habits of just, going. I'm not sure what happens whenever he gets the ball and he just goes a little, I don't want to say crazy, but he needs to learn how to slide or at least take a hit. I see guys do that. I see Josh Allen constantly running over people. Jalen Hurts, the same thing. I see him, if you're going to go. You know what I mean? And I think Tua being a little undersized probably doesn't help out with that. But when I talk about Tua, talking about Loa, in his concussions and, this is the game of football. It's played weekly. Every week they play. And you got guys like UFC fighters, boxers who get concussed on a constant basis. Nobody ever calls for them to retire. I know you didn't just call for him to retire, but what I'm saying is it's common in sports. Concussions are a part of sports. And in regards to Tua specifically, that happened that week 2 against the Buffalo Bills in Miami, and Tua was in Seattle on the sidelines that next week against Seattle. So when we talk about a guy who's concussed, he wouldn't have took the trip, that long West Coast plane trip with the team, and then to be out there on the sideline. I think Tua, if physically, he probably could have played the next week. It wouldn't have been the most wise thing to do, but health-wise, he's been traveling with the team. He's been at every game. He's been coaching his guys on the sideline. He's ready to go. I think it was an unfortunate hit, but due to his experience, due to his history, he had to miss these games. They had to go on the 6-week IR, not the 4-week, the 6-week. You want to know why? Because they had the Dolphins had to show the NFL, like, if we're doing what we had to do, we're taking care of them. Josh Allen suffered a concussion just the last against the Ravens, I believe it was. And that happened on national TV. And his head bounced against the field. He was out for one play. And then they put him back in and said, everything's good. Gravy. NFL said, all right, cool. If I could count on, I don't have enough fingers or toes, Mike. Over the last 3 seasons I was covering the Buffalo Bills, how many times I saw Josh Allen have a concussion? I'm talking about his head ricocheting off of the field, off the turf, and he just goes back in. So the thing is, this constant narrative around Tua talking about Loa, I understand everybody reacts different, but the impact is still the same. Tua's brain, he has the hands and the fingers, and they get, what I'm saying? Josh Allen, he goes back in the game, but those hits are still the same. And I've seen vicious, violent, and volatile hits from Josh Allen where his head just hit the turf. And I don't know how he's even playing. So nobody's calling for him. So I understand the narrative around Tua, but everybody's body just responds differently. So I think that Tua is going to be the quarterback for years to come. I'm not as confident in that because Tua can have a stellar season next year, and then the next year get the same thing can happen. So moving forward, I don't think it was a wise investment for the Dolphins to pay him that 4-year contract. I mean, I love Tua. I love the guy. He's a faith guy. I do faith-based sports content. So, that I really like what he's doing, but I just can't trust him. I can't trust him moving forward. But he's going to be playing for sure.
Yeah. I don't know if it's necessarily trust him, but trust his body to hold up, those type of things. Yeah, but I definitely get you. We're going to get into talking Colts versus Dolphins. Mm-hmm. But before that, of course, I do want to talk Dolphins versus Titans and kind of revisit that game for a second. But before we do that, we do have a commercial break we got to take on touring the AFC South.
Yes, sir.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off on these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get this the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South. Like I mentioned before the commercial break, just want to kind of dive into one game before we get into the game of the week, and that would be the Dolphins versus Titans. I've got to say that was the game that broke. The Titans broke their streak of not scoring 30 points. So it was like I don't know, 1,000 days. I can't remember how many days it was, but it was a long time since they scored over 30 points. And that last touchdown by Tony Pollard put them over 30 points. So 31-12. I expected that game to be an ugly game, and it was an ugly game, but I just didn't expect 30 plus points to be scored by either team in an ugly game. And did that score kind of shock you? Because it shocked me a little bit.
It did, but it was kind of a game. That's one thing I could say with the Dolphins offense. A lot of these games, even though they were blowouts, and this is one of them, and the week before against Seattle, 24-3 was another one. But the Dolphins you going into the fourth quarter and like, man, this team could possibly win. What are they going to do? Just because their skills players are just that explosive. But when I saw that, it kind of reminded me a little bit of last year's game, Monday night game against Tennessee and Miami, Will Levis, and just the mistakes on defense. I mean, I think in that game, Bradley Chubb, his cousin, actually, Bradley Chubb, the defensive end for the Dolphins, had a stupid penalty. I mean, just dumb, roughing the passer after the play was done, and it gave the Titans points, and they ended up winning that game. And I think the same can be said. Just the defense, man. The defense has really disappointed me, just immensely. Just like first of all, with Jalen Phillips going down, having a season-ending injury, prayers for him as well. Our young guy, Chop Robinson, first-round pick, he hasn't been doing it, giving us anything. And just the secondary as well. Jalen Ramsey has been getting torched in the backfield. It hasn't been what I expected at all from the defensive side. So when I see a guy like, not even Will Levis, but a guy like Mason Rudolph able to do that to the Dolphins, that was very disappointing and unexpected. I didn't think at all that was going to happen to us.
Yeah, it honestly, I keep wondering in my mind, are they using Jalen correctly? Because they're putting him on this, doing that, and the other, and I'm like, okay, do they need to put on the Los Angeles Rams tape where they had him in all these different spots, playing all these different places? I mean, that seems to be where he thrives the best, but it just seems like to me they want to keep him in one spot. But hey, I'm not mad at it. You do what you do, and do what you feel is best. But to me, he's a jack of all trades, and he's better as a jack of all trades than he is as you put him here and he just stays here. But I do want to talk about, though, the running game. Now, the Titans were missing Jeffrey Simmons that game. He's out with an elbow injury. But T'Vondre Sweat, a.k.a. Meatloaf, was up for the job. And he definitely did some damage in the interior of that Miami offensive line. Did you expect them to run the ball that poorly that game? I mean, honestly, I expect them to get some runs off, but it just seemed like they could not get going in the run game. I mean, a particular former Tennessee Titan is right in the middle of that Miami Dolphins offense, which is probably one of the key reasons why it's not happening.
Yeah.
But did you expect them to be better running the football? I mean, that game specifically?
Not that game, Mike, because the Dolphins' offensive line has been very bad in regards to just their injuries. Teron Armstead, he's been out with injuries. Isaiah Wynn, the starting left guard, he hasn't played all season either. And then, of course, you throw in Aaron Brewer, and he's just not what we expected him to be. Not to mention we lost Robert Hunt in free agency at the right guard position. So shout out to Austin Jackson for holding down that right side and doing what he has to do there. But you add in those offensive line injuries, and then you add in the fact that Raheem Mostert wasn't playing due to his injuries. Devante was also out. I wasn't expecting much. I expect him to get a lot better, but I don't expect much. Even the rookie Jalen Wright, he had a couple good runs, but nothing nearly what we needed to get the job done. So that's another thing. The last year the Dolphins were top 10 in rushing yards per game, and this year, until that health gets to where it needs to be. And it's Mike McDaniel, too. We can't let him off the hook with his play calling. His play calling has been god-awful over this last 5 games of the season. So we have to account for that as well. But, yeah, that's where we're at with it. And I think we're going to get a lot better moving forward. But for right now, nah, man, it just wasn't it.
I would say this. Let me tell you about the first time I actually saw Aaron Brewer in person. Let me tell you that. I actually was out there at Titans camp, and I looked up, and I was like, hey, who's that new linebacker out there? That's the first thing I said. I looked at him, I was like, oh, no, that's Aaron Brewer. I was like, oh, my bad. Because he literally, if you look at him, he doesn't look like your usual offensive lineman because he's not super tall, and he's not super heavy. He's just like a really in-shape lineman. And it just, to me, and I'm like, that's really him. You know, it kind of threw me off because I was like, I really thought he was a linebacker, and then he was wearing like a 50 somewhere or 50 some odd number or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a linebacker. And they were like, no, that's Aaron Brewer. I was like, oh, you know. So I'm just glad I didn't say that close to anybody else,
right?
Because I really thought he was a linebacker the way he looked, man. So I can understand why he's having issues in terms of doing things in the interior of the offensive line, because he really doesn't have a lot of weight on him, and he's going up against guys that are 320, 330 pounds in the interior of offensive lines.
And that was another thing. When we talk about the the Dolphins and their offseason moves, I just feel like they really missed out on a guy like Connor Williams. You know, he was the number one PFF ranked center last season for the first half of the season until he got hurt. He was a free agent. Now he's starting in Seattle, and all because of the mishandling of the money, the mishandling of how he got injured, and now we're stuck with Aaron Brewer, and that's clearly not the answer. So we have to do something.
It's two guys that got paid in the last couple of seasons and one was by the Miami Dolphins when bringing in Aaron Brewer, and the other guy was Nate Davis. He got paid by the Chicago Bears, and he was a healthy scratch this past week, and he got paid by the Chicago Bears. And guess what those two guys used to be? They used to be side by side in Tennessee. One was the guard and one was the center. So yeah, they chose to bring neither one of them back. So they'll tell you something when your line is not great, and they choose to bring neither one of them back. Doesn't mean that you need to sign them. But hey, it is what it is. I just wanted to kind of revisit that game for a hot second. But we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to get into the game of this week, which is the Indianapolis Colts and the Miami Dolphins on touring the AFC South.
A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. JGillz, we got to talk about the Colts and the Dolphins. This is a big game for both of these teams. The Colts trying to keep momentum going. The Dolphins trying to get that winning feeling. And I will say this, you did talk about Jonathan Taylor earlier. Still is pretty questionable with the ankle. However, I will say that Anthony Richardson did practice in full. So I believe he will be out there. He actually was scheduled to play versus the Titans, but they wanted to, I guess, give him an additional week. So, and it actually ended up being a good thing for them because, hey, Flacco brought them back and they won the game. But we're going to stick with the running game, though, first. Assuming Jonathan Taylor is back, do you expect the Colts to just primarily probably focus a little bit more on that running game and trying to hit up the Miami Dolphins between the tackles with Jonathan Taylor?
I think that'll be their best game plan. As bad as the Dolphins defense has been at getting pressure and, trying to get to the quarterback, even getting takeaways, they're still top 5 in yards allowed, and a lot of that is due to their passing game and their passing defense. Right now, they're second in the league in passing yards per game. So throwing the ball on those guys is going to be a lot tougher, and that's without a pass rush. Just to let you know, because I'm not sure where we're at in sacks right now, but it's not good, especially with Bradley Chubb being out, Jalen Phillips being done for the year. That's kind of our whole pass rush. But I think that's going to be the key to the game, is to try and get that ground game going and try and beat down those Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, the interior guys definitely need to eat their Wheaties this week, probably, and need to be ready for a lot of physical violence between the tackles this week. Another thing to look at, especially when it comes to physical violence and probably a lot of physical play, is the cornerback versus wide receiver matchup between Jalen Ramsey and Michael Pittman Jr. Now, Michael Pittman Jr., this is an interesting story. Michael Pittman Jr. was, talked about to have a back injury and potentially be on IR. Well, I see a report from ESPN.com, Stephen Holder, that he's out at practice and he's practicing full practice after that was talked about. And I'm like, okay, what happened? I was kind of shocked when I read it, and we talked about it, and yeah, he played through pain, and so he went from being potentially on IR to being out there on the field and catching a very pivotal touchdown versus the Tennessee Titans. So he's probably going to be playing injured again this week against Jalen Ramsey. Like you mentioned, he hasn't necessarily had the best of seasons so far, but he can jump up and bite you. Definitely, if you pick with him too much. So,
and we got our guys back too on the other side, Colin Fuller and Cam Smith. Both guards came back.
Now with Jalen Ramsey, versus Pittman. And Pittman's not a speed guy. Mm-hmm. He's more of a physical guy. So I think this matchup is going to be one that's going to have some there's going to be some talking. There's going to be some helmets popping off. There's going to be there. I would not be surprised if there is one moment where they have a skirmish between these two. Okay. So how much are you looking forward to this matchup between these two physical guys out there?
Oh man, I'm excited. Anytime that Jalen Ramsey can do what he does for us, that'll be greatly appreciated. I'm not sure how long Pittman has been in the league, but I'm not even sure if these guys got any, dated back history back when Ramsey played for the Jaguars.
No, he wasn't there then.
Oh, he wasn't there. Okay. I was wondering that. So absolutely. I mean, I'm sure Jalen's geared up just to play one of his old division rivals in the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. So a big game from him. I can almost book that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice, man. He actually did go to the same high school I did. He actually went there years after I did, but yeah, him and I don't know if you remember King Dunlap, that was a offensive lineman for the Eagles and the Chargers, right. And Derek Barnett. Him and Derek Barnett actually were high school teammates.
Wow.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about those two, guess how many state championships they won?
I'm gonna let you tell me.
0.
Oh my God!
They did not win the state championship together. Well, after they left, then they won like 4 in a row. That school won 4 in a row after they left. Yeah, it's crazy. But getting back to the game, Anthony Richardson, like I said, is more than likely going to play. I think he's going to play this week. Went through a full practice. I think he's going to be good to go. But he's having an issue protecting the football. He's thrown 6 interceptions this year. It's been talked about his maturation or the growing pains, I should say. So going against him, do you expect the Dolphins defense to kind of throw a few curveballs at him, perhaps to maybe a simulated blitz that really isn't one, or something of that nature to kind of, I guess, try to get in his head a little bit out there?
To be honest, I'm not going to have that much faith in that Dolphins defense. And to me, when I look at Anthony Richardson, I haven't watched much of him, but to me, he reminds me more of a Josh Allen than a Lamar Jackson. And Josh Allen has owned the Miami Dolphins. I mean, owned. So I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Richardson went out there, ran all over the place, even threw a couple. He's big, he's physical. We can't tackle. The Dolphins, we cannot tackle. So I think he might even have his way with this offense, with his defense, unfortunately. But I think that's the way I'm leaning.
Got you. Okay. All right. So with Tua going down, they just kind of switch over to the offensive side of the ball. With Tua going down, the Colts, they're basically going to be going against probably Huntley. I don't see Skylar Thompson jumping back out there anytime soon. So with that happening, the Colts don't have necessarily the greatest secondary. So do you expect at least the Colts to the Dolphins to try to at least test that secondary with the speedsters that they have? I mean, I think they should, but do you think they should do so? Because I mean, I remember the first start with Huntley, there was a lot of these short passes to behind the line of scrimmage passes. Now, he's been there for a while, I think they ought to try to attack down the field. Do you foresee that potentially more happening with him, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, perhaps?
I mean, right, the way it's looking, the last couple of games with Huntley, and I have to give him his just due in the sense that he basically came up the streets and started the game in a week. After a week, started the last two games. That first game starting was like fresh. He just got to the team. So, I thought he did all right. He's missed guys left and right. His accuracy is just not there. And I think that could be due to the system in place with Mike McDaniel. That's why I say a guy like Tua Tagovailoa, with his intangibles, with the things that he does well, Mike McDaniel's really put that together. And I think Tua actually put his system together. Tua doesn't get enough credit, just putting that McDaniel system in place. Because one thing McDaniels has shown us is that he does not know how to adjust well to different quarterbacks. He likes to run his offense, and if a guy doesn't have the time, the quick release, doesn't have the accuracy, he doesn't have those things, then the offense isn't going to run as well, and that's what we've been seeing. We haven't saw him adjust his game to tailor it to the quarterback that's playing. Skylar Thompson, that's why he hasn't looked as good, because Skylar's a different quarterback than Tua. What is Skylar doing well, and how can you use that? I think what made Snoop Huntley, so well in Baltimore is because of the similarity. He fit that style of offense. You know what I mean? Physical running team, and just being able to make the plays. I could see Coach Harbaugh, encouraging his quarterbacks to run. That's designed runs. McDaniel's not doing that. He wants his quarterbacks to drop back, make the pass, whether it's short, intermediate, or make the bomb. And these guys aren't as accurate. They just don't have the timing. So we're going to see if Mike McDaniel can switch his play style calling a little bit with Huntley knowing the playbook a little bit more, having that bye week. Hopefully that some chemistry was built. But in the same time, it could have been more morale being built. And there was that KOD throwing money together. You know what I mean? It's Miami. You just never know. So let's hope it was on the field running the routes. But, team bonding could have been made in other ways. So I'm just hoping that Mike McDaniel can call the game how it needs to be called. And if not, I think a lot of the Dolphin Nation is going to be calling for his head.
They might be, but he's still going to be there. But they just paid him that extension. But I would say this, though, a bright shining light for this game is the Colts' run defense. Now, the Colts on the third, and I think forever, allowed a rushing touchdown from Tony Pollard last week when they were facing the Titans. It was third and like 19 or whatever, third and goal. They were way off, and he just basically ran through that entire defense and scored the touchdown, which shocked me. And then, of course, you had Joe Mixon and Josh Jacobs have big time days against them, and the Josh Jacobs one. Well, that was when that was Malik Willis's first start for the Green Bay Packers, where they were kind of having a limited passing game for him, and basically they knew Green Bay was going to run the football, and they still ran the football on them. So with those encouraging things, encouraging information that you heard, do you think maybe the Dolphins kind of get it going with their either Mostert or anybody they throw back there?
Oh, yeah. With Mostert, I think with Mostert being back, last week was his first week back. And they ended up, well, not last week, the bye week, but 2 weeks ago against New England was his first week back. Then he had the bye week. That's just a physical runner. He knows Mike McDaniel's system. I think Mike trusts him running the ball. He's more – because that's honestly how we won the game against New England. That second half, they just was ground and pound with Mostert. And, they had some huge plays, got under center and did what they had to do. I think if Mike just continues to do that, I think that, Raheem, he's a shifty guy. He's a veteran guy. He knows the offense. And I think that he can have a little bit of success with that three-headed monster, Devante Chain, Jalen Wright, and Raheem Mostert. Well, one of them out, it gets a little dicey. And not to mention, Devante Chain had a concussion protocol against New England as well. But you got those three guys together, I think, they might be able to control that offense a little better.
I think eventually Jalen Wright's going to end up being the guy. I remember watching him at the University of Tennessee, and he wasn't necessarily the guy there, but he became the guy back in the 2023 season. And he just kept plugging away. And every time he got in there, the one thing that I always noticed about him, it took more than one person to tackle him, or he's going to make that first person miss or run through a tackle or something where it's not going to be the first person that gets to him makes the play. And I think that is a huge thing for the Miami Dolphins in terms of the running game, getting it going. Because I know A-Chain, I know he's a speedster, but he does tend to get knocked down by one guy pretty frequently. Raheem Mostert, now that guy's he's built and he can take hits and things like that, but he also has the long speed as well. So it'll be interesting. I think Jalen Wright ends up being the guy eventually to me, because I think A-Chain, unfortunately, I think he's going to end up being kind of hurt often, which I don't wish that on anybody, but I kind of see that potentially coming from him. But yeah, man, it's gonna be an interesting game. The Dolphins and the Colts this upcoming week of NFL football. Yeah, it's truly a game that it could go one way or the other. It's truly a game that could go one way or the other. One thing that can also go one way or the other is the game we have at the end of the show. It's 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, we're going to jump into the Wu-Tang real quick. Ghostface Killer or Raekwon? Which one are you taking?
I'm going to go Raekwon.
Raekwon, okay. Look, I'd say this, though. Ghostface, I wasn't a huge fan of his at first, but then I started listening. I was like, man, I really missed out on some good music here.
Yeah, man. Not to mention, shout out to Raekwon, former Dolphins linebacker, correct one. You feel me? He with the Patriots now. So
All right, you got an MVP. You got a wide receiver that has 2,000 yard season, or a quarterback that throws 50 touchdowns in the season. Which one do you think is the MVP, or which one do you think should be the MVP?
50 touchdowns in the season. 50 touchdowns. I'm going 50 touchdowns in the season. I loved it. 2,000 yards was crazy. You know what I'm saying? That's tough. That's a tough one. But I'm almost gonna bet that receiver that got the 2,000 yards, the 50 yarders was throwing it to him. So I'm gonna go with the quarterback.
Yeah. I hear you there. Only reason I'd say I'd probably go with the wide receiver, because you don't often see any wide receivers go for 2,000 yards. The only one I remember seeing last is Calvin. Did Calvin Johnson come close to that, or did he go over that? I can't remember.
I think he went over. No, Cooper Kupp. He was just about. No, he was the receptions leader. That's a good question. I know Tyreek also. He was on verge, but he ain't get there last year. Yeah. If a receiver got 2,000 yards, that would be my MVP. I'd have to give him the MVP. 50 tugs is a lot though, but I hear you. I can't be mad.
Yeah, I was going to give you a scary movie one, but I'm going to leave that one alone. I don't know how deep you are in the scary movies.
Spooky season. Let's go.
All right, cool, man. Let's see. If you got one bad guy to pick, or one bad guy in a series, or a horror series to pick, you going with Jigsaw, or you going with Michael Myers?
Oh, Michael Myers. Are you kidding me? He gets the job. He never died. What you mean? Put in what way? Like, do my bidding, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, do your bidding, man.
Michael Myers. Come on, man. That man never died.
Look. I'm gonna say this. Look, Jigsaw, you never see him coming. Yeah, and then true. Jigsaw ain't even been alive for the last 3 or 4 of them, and still getting stuff done. That's a bad man. And if you ain't living, and still getting people you ain't living.
But they done killed Mike how many times, and he's still living.
That's true. All right, now we got to talk about football and sports and everything, but the holidays, we're going to mix those in. Thanksgiving or Christmas, which one is the better sports holiday?
Nowadays, I'll say Christmas, because you got basketball and football, you know? So I say Christmas.
Okay, all right, yeah, because the NBA been kind of standing down on Thanksgiving, but then the NFL just said, we just going to put our feet up on your couch, man.
Right. We got to throw a game on, so can't beat that.
That's right. That's right. It's 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice.
Right.
We have reached the end of the show. I want to thank you for coming on. Can you tell everyone where they can find you on social media or what all things you got going on, man?
Absolutely. Definitely check us out. The Beat 105.5, Rochester, New York. Y'all can check the live stream on the website, thebeat1055.com, every Saturday morning, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can check me out on Zeal Talk Upstate. That's where I do my faith in sports. You know, we talking to the players, talking to the athletes, professional athletes about their faith and, you know, how what role their faith and their, their Christianity has played on them so far. So that's Zeal Talk Upstate and, ZealTalkUpstate.com as well. And, you know, I'll just be around, man. I'll be around. I can catch me in ABJ. Hopefully I'm in Cleveland next year. You know, I'm a member of RABJ, the local chapter here in Rochester, New York. Definitely, if y'all want to connect, please do so. rabjonline.org. And yeah, man, I'm everywhere.
All right. Now, of course, you know, I am the host of the show, Mike Patton. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter, of course, word to Prince, at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82 on the artist formerly known as Twitter. Of course, you can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. And of course, you can find Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. Also, you can find us on YouTube as well. So at the Mike Patton Network. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. This is episode number 302, Miami Vibes. We out.
I gotta say, if we still got time, Mike, just continue to do your thing, man. You're one of the most consistent people in the game. It encourages me, it motivates me, and I'm sure it'll motivate a lot of people. And you put great content out there, so keep doing your thing, man. Follow this man. He know what he's doing.
Appreciate that, man. I appreciate that a lot, man. It means a lot to me. And again, thank you for coming on and giving me some of your time. And episode 302, Miami Vibes. We out.
Should have saved me.